Hello, all, and welcome to Simply Savvy Life, where we explore topics with critical, objective thinking, open minds, and open hearts. At the moment, there's so much I want to convey and have been wanting to, and I've been putting it on hold because I just honestly I've been having some health issues and haven't been getting myself around enough to where I feel like I can appear on video. I know that sounds superficial, and perhaps it is. You know, I'll run to the store and do various errands, but I like to be a little more put together on video, and I have a lot going on. So anyways, if nothing else, I'll appear here in audio, okay? I'm not scripting this. I have no format. There's just like a million things always going through my mind. You've heard me say this before. I've researched a lot. I think a lot. And it's just like these wheels turning constantly. When I put it down on paper or put it into Word, now, and I could argue against the language too. There's some really interesting things about language and spells and how they indoctrinate us. But anyways, that's not what I'm referring to. I just mean that I happen to have a learning and communication style through writing, and so it's a lot harder for me to be coherent when I'm speaking to you, because that's just not my strength in terms of communication style. If I were to write this out, it would be amazing. It would be like an essay or a scientific paper published by some scientist. You know, I put it together and I organize it very well, and my brain works very well that way in writing. But in talking, I think that's why I've struggled with my channel, because it's more of a thing where I just struggle with communicating the way I want to in a verbal format. So there you have that. There's my disclaimer. And really, just where do you start? You know, I mean, there's just so much. You've got so much. And if for a person that hasn't been looking into these things and considering these things, it's even more. It's crazy, unfathomable or something. Gosh, how do I put this? I mean, if I were to sit down and write it, I could write it. But when I get on a video or an audio and I have to talk it out, gosh, it's so much harder. It's just, I have a block there in terms of, you know, making it verbally cohesive and coherent in the way that I would in writing. So it's very, very frustrating because I want to convey these things to you guys. And where are the words? Okay, so maybe for now, instead of picking apart every single, you know, faction or area or whatever, let me take a little broader perspective. Let's zoom out a little bit. Bigger picture here. Okay, what I'm going to say to you guys today is, let's think about belief versus knowledge, right? Now, when I get in my car every day, I believe it's going to start. That's why I put the key in the ignition. Do I know it's going to start? No, I don't. Something could go wrong with it, right? I believe that the mechanics put it together in a proper way that it's going to run, right? They've gone to school, they've been they're the experts, right? And so I can trust that that car is going to work. But it's not just a mental belief. My belief and assurance that the car is going to start, or that cars in general will start and work for the most part, is also based on personal experience. That when I go outside every day and get in my car, it starts. Okay, so let's draw a line here of awareness and realization that there is a big difference between what you believe to be true and what you know to be true. I guess what I'm saying is that in the instance with the car, okay, it's backed up by personal experience. Every day you go out there, you start it, it works, right? So you have a reasonable degree of personal knowledge and assurance that it's going to work. You hear the car, you see the car, you know how, you see how, even you may not understand all the operatings of it inside, but you're aware of certain things that signal a problem, and it's not having those problems. It's not throwing any check engine lights, and every day you go outside, it starts and it works, okay? So you have a reasonable degree of, you know, information to substantiate that you believe this car is going to start. Obviously, kind of degree of reasonable trust and belief combined with personal experience and substantiation, it guides our daily choices and lives because, you can't personally experience everything. Maybe you could, I don't know. It would take a lifetime of study and practice, and you probably wouldn't make enough money to survive. And I'll get into all that too. Money, blah blah blah. Pfft, fuck it. It's all fake. This is all a fake de facto system superimposed over reality. So I guess, and nothing I say is meant to justify or solidify this fake system, okay? I'm talking about something greater or deeper or above or below, whatever I'm zooming out, okay? So I've got experiential, evidence to tell me that this car is in working order, okay? But when it comes to other things, like say, outer space, okay? Now, I'm not claiming flat earth, all right? I find flat earth studies to be incredibly interesting. At one time, I was preaching flat earth, and it's not that I have rejected it at this point. It's just that I've kind of come back a little bit and said, well, I don't really know. I don't really know. I haven't seen the earth from a distance, so I don't know. I think it's very likely that the mainstream narrative and the globe model is completely wrong. I think there's a lot of things that make sense with the flat earth theory, and they're very reasonable. But I still don't know, and that's the thing. We've got to check this ego, okay? The mainstream media and the culture that we live in and the government and the powers and controls that are all at play kind of influencing our lives, how we think, what we see, what we hear, all of our input and, very much guiding, if not completely controlling what we think, hear, see, believe, whatever. We've got to recognize how much we are placing in belief, and faith in these people. I mean, you go to school all these years, right? And you're basically you're told, I don't want to say taught even. I mean, it's so hard to even use language these days because people have so many personal different interpretations of what a word means. And they're like then mixing it with their own emotional experiences that they relate to these words. And so when you're trying to communicate, you use a word and it's like, I don't even want to use the word trigger, but for crying out loud, people do get triggered. It is crazy. It's like they can't step back and see an issue objectively as it is without their emotional connotations being applied to it. Or egotistical connotations, and that is so frustrating because it inhibits effective communication. I mean, shit, maybe I should make this video about communicate. It could be about anything, but all of it's so damn frustrating, I mean, you've got all these lies and bullshit coming out, and people believing it and acting it, and a lot of these people believing and acting on it are really actually, good-hearted people. They're just, they've missed the boat in terms of some of these deeper realizations and digging, they put trust in things. That's the point, I guess, that I'm trying to stick with, the theme for this video. Trust, faith, belief, knowledge. All right, you go to school and, your teacher's telling you all this stuff and you believe it, right? Because you're a little kid and they're an adult and you have these books and, it's all about the experts and blah, blah, blah. And so you believe it. You're like, well, all these people have already done this work and research and they know what they're talking about and they're conveying it to me, and you honestly believe it. Because you think these people have honest intentions. Because as a kid, oh gosh, now I'm gonna start digging into psychology, or I could. You're a child. You have this emulation of adults, and you see them as like all-knowing. I mean, unless you were brought up in abuse. Now, see, I wasn't. I was brought up in a situation where I was like middle class. Maybe a little smidge upper. I mean, we weren't like rich or anything, but we had a house and, we could take vacation and stuff. It wasn't, whatever. You're told this by your parents, get good grades, and you go to school and like these teachers and these people are freaking strangers. Does anybody even stop to think that the people teaching you and your children are actually complete strangers to you? And you don't really know what they think or what their agenda is or where it came from? And what about the people beyond them and the people beyond them and the people beyond them and where all of it came from? That's what I'm saying. A really good quote is, I'll probably misquote it, but something along the lines of, an unexamined life is a life not worth living. I mean, if you're born into a system and a construct and all you do is follow the path laid out for you and you stay on the line and step on the dot and check in here and check in there and do everything you're told and then you die, what the fuck is the point of your life, you know? You got to examine things, and that's really what got me into all of this. Like, I want to say it was back when I was really indoctrinated into the Christian faith. And I was more than one. But I started looking at Christmas and the origin, because look, I happen to have a mind that has an attention for detail, an objective, critical thinking mind that analyzes things. And so I ask questions. I have these natural curiosities, and I've asked so many questions of teachers and instructors, even at the college level, who couldn't provide me answers. And I'm telling you guys, it's unfortunate that we can't relegate or delegate these things to, scientists or experts in their areas, because that would actually be a very efficient thing to do under the right paradigm. Obviously it's inefficient for everybody to try to learn everything about everything, right? So if we kind of pair off and say, I'll take this area, I'll take this area, I'll take this area, and we become experts in those areas, and then we can come back and combine our knowledge and what we found and discuss it together and decide what is the best course of action. That's an entirely different thing from the current paradigm, which is, big money, big industry, big pharma, big tech is paying scientists to state things and fudge the numbers in order to support the agendas of big pharma, big tech, big corporations, which includes big government. Big government is corporation. And that's another whole side topic I could get into as well, like the de facto commercial nature of the laws and guidelines that guide our daily lives. I mean, whoever stops to ask or question any of this? We're taught in school that we're being taught in school, and we accept that, and we're like, oh, they're teaching us because it's all benevolent and blah, 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 but it's not. There's a lot of agendas and money at stake and at play here, okay? It's not all benevolent. We can't just assume that anybody who tells us anything is speaking the truth just because they're a good person, all right? We've got to recognize what is really going on here, what is really at play. And if you investigate it, it's all there. It's all there. Look, I could look up a million things 3 years ago that won't show up now because of the censorship that's going on. But still, even what you can still find in official records completely, people just aren't questioning things, right? We're not questioning. We're not thinking for ourselves. We're like being like, man, from the time I was a kid, it was like, what the fuck is up with this shit? You mean I can grow a tomato out of the ground for free, but I gotta go to the store to buy it? And I could build a house by cutting down, a few trees, and I could build a house and live here, but instead I have to pay this, then pay this, and pay that, and pay this, and even after I buy this, I still have to pay this and get permission to use it, and blah, 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 blah. We don't question these things because we accept the story we're given, that it's all about safety and keeping us safe in society, blah, 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 blah. You guys, I'm so sorry, man. I want to be a lot more detailed. I could go way in depth into any and all of these subjects because I've looked into them. But when I come to you in this verbal format, I don't know how to organize it and explain it. It's like all of it's hitting me at once. I'm sorry. Where does the concept of land ownership come from? I mean, you didn't make the land. You can't patent it. You didn't make it. You didn't even buy it. But if you come onto it and kill the people that live there, now you own it. And then you can invent some imaginary border that exists. I mean, and then we have all these laws and all this debate and division around borders and immigration. It's like, to me, I see land. I see why should you be subject to the conditions in because you happen to be born in this geographical place, and why, I mean, I mean, these are just constructs, guys. Constructs. They're imaginary constructs. We have got to zoom out and pull back and apply some objective thinking here and look at where all this comes from and the origins and the sources. And I've always been one to say don't kill the messenger, or like, for example, also, like, just because somebody says something or stands for something that's really bad doesn't mean that everything they say is wrong. Like, if Hitler said the sky is blue, would you disagree with them just because it was Hitler saying it, right? I mean, there are people who are way off in a lot of areas, but they can still say some true things. I mean, we've just got to apply. Look, I know it's hard and exhausting to be a freaking slave and work at a slave job. And you come home and you want to unwind and relax and not have to think about shit. But that's exactly what is wrong with everything. That we're not taking personal responsibility. We're not participating in our own governance. We're not actively participating in our own societies. We're leaving it to other people. We're leaving it to experts who make a lot of money to be corrupt. And then we don't want to believe they're corrupt because that inconveniences us. Because then we have the responsibility is more impressed upon us to step up and do something about it. And people don't want to be inconvenienced. They want to go home and watch their sitcoms instead of going out to a city council meeting. I mean, or going across the street and making friends with their neighbors and finding out what they need and how they can help and talking to them and making connections and all these grassroots relationships that we should be naturally, organically having. I mean, look. If you are living out there on the land, right, you got to grow your own food, right? It's going to take a little help, right? So you enlist your kids, right? And your kids are out there in the fields with you, and you're talking with them, and you're bonding with them, and you're interacting with them, and you can teach them stuff, and they're learning about the real world, how things really work. How food grows, which is really important, because I'll tell you what, when these artificial systems all go away, how are you going to live if you don't know how real life works? If you don't know how to grow food, you're going to starve to death, right? These are the real skills that are all being lost to our society and our younger generations. Even myself, I don't know shit about that stuff, but I want to. Yet there's so much burden on me from so many angles that it makes it hard to. But yet if we were all to band together and fight against this, look, say they come to arrest your neighbor for some stupid freaking thing. Say, like I read in Florida where some guy, like, he had to leave town to attend to his mother's funeral, and he knew that there was a city ordinance about the length of your grass, and he was going to be gone. He wouldn't be able to cut his grass, so he hired a friend to come cut his grass while he was gone. So he was trying to do the best he could to obey this law, but while he was gone, his friend also unexpectedly died, right? So he couldn't come mow the lawn, and the guy's lawn grow was like above the ordinance allowed limit while he was tending to his mother's funeral, and despite the fact that he had made arrangements for his lawn to be cut in his absence, right? I mean, who is this hurting? Where's the freaking victim? Who was hurt by this, right? But they want to come repo his house and charge him over $30,000 for having uncut lawn for a few weeks. I mean, if our neighbors, if we all came out and we stood around each other, right? What are they going to do? Take us all to jail? If everybody just said no, and I'm talking military, cops, and bankers, people, not just like the big top bankers, but the tellers. The thing is, people don't realize that the lower level, they're not being read in to this plan, but they are still a part of it. They're not being told what they are a part of and what they are helping to accomplish, but they are still helping to accomplish it. So if they would just do the research and take the awareness to understand of what they are participating in, and then take the personal responsibility to say, no, I'm not going to participate in that because it's wrong, guess what? This whole thing would come to a screeching freaking halt. All of it. I mean, you wouldn't even need a war. You wouldn't even need to kill anybody. Not to say that maybe that wouldn't happen somehow in the process, but, if you just said no, if we just said no and didn't do it, what are they going to fucking do? You think Biden and Obama and Bushes and all these Pelosi and all these types are going to go scoop their own poop and garbage and, make their own food and da-di-da-di-da? Well, they should be. They'd be forced to. I mean, why do we think that they are so above us? Like, that they have this authority over our lives that is supreme to our authority over our own lives. This is ridiculous. Oh gosh, guys, there's so much I want to say and convey, and I could do it in so much detail. It's just, there's so much running through my head. I'm struggling to organize it, and I also have to be careful what I say because, my last channel, gosh, it was growing pretty fast in a relatively small amount of time, even considering the fact that I was covering very unpopular topics, but it was completely deleted, and so now I'm even like, what am I going to say? But I will tell you guys, I'm on Odyssey. They wouldn't let me upload today. I've got videos I'm trying to upload, but I don't know they're having some issues with their site. I think they're transitioning and combining Library and Odyssey into one, so hopefully it's just a temporary glitch and I can get other videos back up on that site. But guys, just, I continue to emphasize critical objective thinking. We've got to separate ourselves and our own emotional responses and our own personal experience and realize that, guess what? You haven't encountered everybody in the world. You've only encountered a teeny tiny fraction of them. You've only encountered a teeny tiny fraction of the culture in the world. People are like, well, everybody I've met or everybody I'm like, okay, but all those people, even if you count them all, still only constitute a tiny fraction. We've got to admit that we don't know. There's no shame in saying, I don't know. I wasn't there, or I didn't meet that person, so I can't say for sure. There is no freaking shame in that, and I'll make this my closing point, is the ego. We have this ego here, and it's hugely enforced through the media in the U.S. culture, probably elsewhere as well. I can't say because I've only lived in the U.S., but what I can say, it's all about ego. It's all get what you want, everything you want, get it now, and you're entitled to that. And it is a horrible, horrible message. Zoom the freak out. Think about other people other than yourselves. When I approach an issue, like I asked a question one time. We had a meeting at I was working for a nursing home, okay? And the nursing home was being taken over by a different corporation that was buying it out. And they had a different insurance plan. And I asked a question that didn't apply to me at all. But I was curious, and it would apply to a lot of people. However, the automatic assumption was that this must have been my personal circumstance because I was asking about it. Well, yes, typically people only seem to care about their own personal circumstance. I mean, it's like they want their life easy, even if it means making the lives of many other people harder, but they only care about themselves. It's this very egocentric view. It's a very childish view. It's like we're psychologically underdeveloped. In fact, I'll say we are. We are psychologically underdeveloped as a whole, as a society. We are like overgrown children. And I could get into the details of that as well from a psychological standpoint and why and how the degrees of psychological development are inhibited from birth or even before birth. I could get into that a great deal. I've studied birth a lot. I've studied birth, and I'm a huge advocate of natural home birth, and for very good reasons. And once again, it's like, God, if I just get into all this stuff, I'd be like I don't know how many hours long video. How do you do? Research, think for yourselves, please, please, please. You will do research and you will find a lot of the mainstream narrative. Use a browser like DuckDuckGo, because Google Chrome censors your search results and will give you what they think you need to see instead of what you actually need to see or what actually pops up. So please use an internet search browser that does not censor your search results. Think independently. Think critically. No, that doesn't mean make up whatever the hell you want about everything, but for crying out loud, separate yourself. Separate your own indoctrination. Separate your beliefs. Separate your emotional responses. Try to zoom out and take a bigger picture look at things. Follow the money. Follow the ego. It's all out there. It's really not all that hard to find. But as one said, it's harder to convince people they've been fooled than to fool them in the first place. With that, gosh, I always want to say so much more, but it always gets so long. So I'm going to wrap it up for now, at least shoot something out to you guys. I love you all. Please think critically and objectively with open minds, open hearts, compassion and empathy, but also an attention to detail. Guys, follow the money, follow the ego. Look, just wake up, okay? And even then, look, the thing about being awake, all right, this will be my final point. The thing about being awake, you realize, you awaken, you enlighten when you realize how little you actually know. When you realize that you're actually building all these things you think are knowledge on things you've just been told from other people that you choose to believe because you believe that these people are credible. I have found that my world opens up and I can consider things and see things that I wouldn't have before if I will just let go of this prescribed paradigm. Let go of the prescribed paradigm that you've chosen to accept and look at things as they really are. And even though I'm not religious, I would say that's what Jesus was talking about when he said being born again. He said it's like being born into the world again for the first time, like seeing the world with whole new eyes. And that is exactly the experience I have had many times over when I have an awareness, when I'm willing to put down my stake in the outcome. And I just want to know the truth. Like, a lot of people will pray or ask for guidance and truth as long as it meets what they think they want for their lives, right? I want this girlfriend, please give her to me, make it happen. Or I want this money or this job or whatever. What I'm talking about is getting down on your freaking knees. And I don't mean in a religious way. I guess what I'm saying is just submitting yourself to yourself and to reality, and saying, look, whatever the truth is, whatever it freaking is, no matter how bad it is, bring it on. I want to know. Open my heart, open my mind. Please bring truth, no matter what it means. If I have to shed this or shed that or take on this or take, you know what I'm saying? Like, I might have to completely change my whole way of life. But what I really want is truth. That's the point at which you might actually start receiving some truth. Because as long as you're trying to make it fit your mold and you will only accept what fits what is comfortable for you, you will never find the truth. You will never find the truth if it's only on your terms and you're cherry picking. You have to fucking submit yourself and say, I want the truth no matter what it means. No matter how bad or how good or whatever. That's objectivity. When a scientist embark on an experiment, all right, and they're not looking for a certain result. That's what I'm talking about. Like, they're doing an experiment because they just want to know. They're not saying, oh, I'm trying to prove this or I'm trying to disprove that. If you go into it with preconceived notions and expectations, then you're not going to be objective when you review the results. So you've got to go into it saying, I don't care what the results are. I just want the truth. Just the truth. That's where we have to be. It might hurt our feelings. It might move us to change our lifestyle, and all of that might be inconvenient and it might be uncomfortable. But really, are you going to trade living in truth for convenience? If we were all living in truth, then it would actually be more convenient. Think about efficiency. Think about the commerce system. Oh gosh, I can't. That's going to have to be a separate video about profit and commerce above life. That's going to have to be a whole separate video. But guys, I wanted to touch base with you. Haven't been here in a while. I've been, dragging along, and I just haven't felt pretty enough to be on video, but I gotta get with you, and I've gotta get some of this out. So, there you go. I would appreciate your likes, shares, comments, all of that stuff. It's definitely very motivating for me to keep up with content when I have more viewers and subscribers who actually want to see it. So the more that you help promote my content, this is not about money for me at all, but the more people who are interested, it helps motivate me to provide more content and to do a better job of it. So not that those of you watching don't matter to me, but you're a small crowd and there's a lot on my plate. So I want to put more time and energy into this channel, but it's just hard to do when there's only a small number of people watching. So if you could help promote it, I would really appreciate it. And I've got a lot more coming. I'm just, like I said, I'm trying to figure out how to put it into verbal words in an organized way so that I don't just totally word vomit on everybody. All right, but I love you very much. I care so very much about this world and every individual in it, and blessings to you, okay? And thank you for being here, especially if you made it this long. This is Simply Savvy Life signing off.